Hello and welcome to another edition of the UK and Ireland Minnesota Vikings Fan Club podcast. I'm your host this week, co-president Reece Field. I'm joined today by all-round nice guy, Vice President Mr. John McDonald, and club chief advisor and merchandise aficionado, Mr. Darren Howell. How you doing, gentlemen?
Gentlemen.
I'm doing all right, and you confused. You tried to
spanner in the works. Why not?
Well, hello, gentlemen, and yes,
hello,
I'm
gentlemen.
very well, thank you.
Yeah, no, Rich doing his let's say professional hosting job this week. He is busy looking after the kids. You know, parenthood. Not quite there yet, so I can't really relate. Darren, I guess you can give him some sympathy though for missing this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Although it's Rich, so no sympathy from me at all. But generally speaking, yes, he's doing his parenting duty. So yes, that's more important than coming on here and chatting stuff with us.
Well, shall we chat some Vikings? I mean, there's been some Vikings news. JJ McCarthy has made some, I'll say, bullish comments, but I think the confidence is good. John?
If he keeps on like this, there's going to be no walls left in my house, because he really gave that feeling like, yes, this is my guy. I'm ready to run through a wall for this guy right now. Yeah. It's only just starting, but yeah, it's going to be dangerous if he keeps on like that.
Darren, how are you feeling about the early days of JJ McCarthy? Just talking to the press.
Well, I think he always comes across very assured. He's very well media trained. He's a very thoughtful young man, so always comes across good. I did see that Chase Daniels was slating him, saying that he looked nervous and unprepared, and so. But I think it. I also think, isn't he for the Athletic who were just going on about the Rodgers stuff? So I think he's still bitter about that not being true. So it's I'm looking forward to it. It's really exciting, and get through camp, get him out there for the first game of the season. I'm buzzing for it.
Job one, getting through preseason healthy. You could tell as well, it wasn't just the way that McCarthy was carrying himself in the interviews. I think it was Josh Metellus and Brian O'Neill also spoke to the media, and both were just saying great things about him. You know, a real testament to his character. The guys, of course, didn't step on the field last season, but off the field, he seemed like he was doing all the right things to, you know, sell himself and put himself forward to the team like, I am your future, believe in me. And I feel like his teammates really were believing in him.
Yeah, he does seem to have that belief team, and belief in himself, but not an arrogant belief in himself. He doesn't come across arrogant, big-headed.
No, self-assured, I guess, is the best way I'd put it. I mean, to be fair, he should believe in this team as well. Look at the weapons he's got around him.
Yeah.
There's nothing not to believe in. So he just needs to know that he can go out there and perform and do his job. And I have every confidence that he can do that. If KOC and the coaching staff are, putting him in as the starter, then they all think he's ready. And if they think he's ready, then I'm not going to disagree with them.
And also with JJ McCarthy, he also addressed the weight loss, shall we say. He was noticeably thinner at the back end of last season, where he hadn't been able to work out, but he looked much more healthy in himself at the podium. He addressed that in saying that he's one of those guys that if he doesn't work out, he just loses the muscle. And so as soon as he was able to start working out again, he did put it back on with ease, which it's filled me with confidence, because I was a bit worried when I saw him towards the back end of last season.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily worried myself when he lost the weight, because I thought, as it transpires, it was quite a natural process to lose weight. You do one of two things. You either put a load of weight on because you like a snack and you're not exercising, or you're more, to be fair, a body type like me that just is really really tough to put weight on. So he's obviously better than doing it than I am. But getting that muscle mass, which it definitely helps with weight, given that it weighs more than fat pound for pound. It's good to hear that he's at least addressing it and wasn't trying to dismiss it. And I think again that just goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago. He didn't shy away from any questions, whether it be around his mentality and his mental strength, because I think that was where a lot of the questions seemed to be angled at, more how is he doing mentally. And I think he faced those questions and answered them, honestly, but without looking nervous or trying to give a politician's answer.
And of course, it wasn't just JJ McCarthy who was in the news since we last spoke. Andrew Van Ginkel has signed a contract extension with the Vikings, a 1-year extension worth $23 million, with 22.4 of that guaranteed. Well deserved on the back of last season, right, John?
Absolutely. He came in here as a kind of prove it, but we kind of knew what he could do. I think B-Flow always loved him, and he came in and boy did he.
Yeah, and we were all together for that first Gink 6 of the season, and we all saw the second Gink 6 of the season in person as well. I mean, we saw the first one at the meetup, and then the next one in London. Darren, how many more Gink 6s this season?
I think he's going to at least get, and I think he's going to equal his record. I think just the way he plays, I think he just, I think he. Yeah, I think he'll get two this season again. But it's really difficult, to because not only have you got to make that interception or make that block and then catch it, but depending on where it is on the field, certainly his first one was pretty much he just had to trip over the line and he was there. The one in London had to do a bit more running to get there, but yeah, obviously the closer those happen. So with all those things taken in consideration, maybe you can push it to 3. Let's be optimistic. Let's say 3.
And it was a team-friendly deal, really, as well. When you look at it, it's not outstanding amount of money to be paying an edge rusher, and also working in a void year at the end of that as well. I think in 2027, if he's not on the Vikings roster, he'll only be costing the team around $8.8 million, which, with the way the salary cap's been going up lately, doesn't even really make a dent. So a very good piece of business by Kwesi, I feel. And you can never have too many good edge rushers.
Yeah, I have no issues with the deal. Well deserved, as John said. So it's a shame it's only for 1 year, to be honest. But I understand why it's only for 1 year at this stage.
Yeah, because we never know what we're going to see out of Dallas Turner. We don't know how he's going to develop. There's always things going on, and also we know that at the end of that 3rd year, we are entering the McCarthy negotiation window, shall we call it? Where if everything goes well, we may be having to pay a hefty sum of money to a very talented young quarterback. It's not the worst. Not the worst problem, is it?
No. Yeah, I hope we have that problem. But we might be able to kick that 1 year down the road to the 4th year, given he lost a whole season. So, but obviously there'll definitely be a 5th year option being taken. Yeah.
There always is, isn't it? Usually the thing is, the Vikings like to get the negotiations done early. As it's been proven here with Gink. He had a year to run his deal, get in there before he even steps on field in his final year, getting him extended. We saw it with Jefferson, saw it with Darrisaw as well. Getting them extended before the 5th year option even really comes into play. So some very, very smart, some very shrewd business from Kwesi again. But we've also, we got to revisit some of the older news. We touched upon it in last week's show. During the draft, we made a trade back with the Seahawks and picked up a number 2 quarterback. We spent far too long agonizing over whether it would be Carson Wentz, Joe Flacco, or someone who's not even signed with a team yet and yet somehow seems to be dictating what teams play overseas next season. John, what are your initial thoughts on Sam Howell?
My initial thoughts are this is a guy that KOC really liked, been after for a little while. I think this was the plan all along. And you know what? When he was playing in Washington, I always said that there's something there. That was an awful team he was on, and I always quite liked him. I mean, he threw over 4,000 yards that season on that Washington side. That's a pretty impressive feat. No Bears quarterback has ever done that. So
he was. I think he might have actually done just shy of 4,000 in the end, but still closer than any Bears quarterback, Scott.
Yeah, he's definitely something about it. And if you know what, I trust KOC now. If KOC says he's a good QB, I'm ready to run wild with that.
It was a weird season though, the Washington season, because that year he led the league in interceptions, but also led the league in attempts, which is quite the stat. It shows that he was throwing the ball a lot. We know that KOC is not shy to throw the ball, and the early comparisons sort of we were seeing post draft, where he's like a Nick Mullins 2.0 in the sense of he is going to be gung ho, he is going to make risky passes, but he's got a lot more athleticism about him. Darren, how are you feeling about Sam Howell being that number 2 quarterback?
I'm quite happy with it. As John says, this is someone that obviously KOC has had his eye on for quite some time. I think the timing of the deal was perfect. I think that was the cheapest. Picking that point allowed us to get him at the cheapest I think we could get him at. So, and like you say, you know, he went into a team. You know, this isn't a Sam Darnold situation where you know you have a first round pick. You know, that's coming in that's had a real bad time. What is it? I think Sam Howell was a 5th round pick. I think is that right?
Yeah.
So, and he's shown, you know, he's shown what he can do, but he's also shown that he's not necessarily a starter. So, you know, but he's good enough to sit behind there. You know, Nick Mullins is Nick Mullins. We've all talked about Nick Mullins over the years about what we think of him. He's great at holding a clipboard and coming in for the odd third down, but you wouldn't want to rely on him if your team went down, which we didn't, obviously, when Cousins went down a couple of seasons ago. So yeah, you know, I think it's the right option given that we are having JJ as the starter. You know, if it clearly states that he is ready. If there was some nervousness around within the Vikings around JJ and whether he was ready to start, I don't think Sam Howell would be the pick. So I think that gives us confidence that JJ's ready to go to be the starter, and he is a perfectly adequate backup if he needs to come in over the likes of Brett Rippin or the other UDFA that we brought in, which we might talk about later. But
yeah, I get that. And I think with Sam Howell, I think, of course, the Vikings were quite clear they were never going to draft a quarterback in that 2023 draft class. But Kevin O'Connell also made no secret of the fact that he likes to go to the combine to speak to the quarterbacks. So he would have already had a feel for who Sam Howell was, and like you both alluded to, this probably was something that was in the works for a long time as a guy that they had an eye on. And yeah, I'm all for it. It'll be exciting. I hope he doesn't have to play, but at the same time, I trust him like I trusted Nick Mullins too. If you need him to come onto the field for a third down and make either a risky throw or just a 7-yard slant, I have complete faith that he would be able to do that. I think with the offensive line that we've got now, the scary stat from his first season about how he took 65 sacks, and that was a league high that year. That's nothing really to worry about now. It's we at the back end of last season, Kevin O'Connell was very clear in saying we need to do better on the interior offensive line, and we've done that. We've drafted the first round guard, we've picked up an outstanding guard in free agency, and also a veteran center. So it is a completely remodeled line. So whoever is under center of the Vikings should have a lot more confidence than if they were starting behind last year's offensive line.
Yeah,
that is the plan.
That is the plan going forward. But saying it out loud seems like you're risking too much there, Reece. So
when have we ever said anything out loud that's bit us in the backside?
We don't have long enough for this recording to go through those, to be fair.
On this show, us three were usually quite good. Now, there is one of our counterparts who's not here today who may make some very brash and bold comments, but he's not here, so I feel confident. I mean, John knows the first time that John and I watched a game together was the Packers game where it was 29-29. Daniel Carlson couldn't hit a barn door with a machine gun, but I remember saying to the former president of the club, Tommy, all we need here is a touchdown, a 2-point conversion, and we're back in this. And he looked at me like, you don't know this team well enough, but it happened. So maybe this is a good omen. Shall we talk about our favourite undrafted free agents?
Yeah, let's talk about our favourite. Well, you can talk. Favourites for me, it might be a bit of a strong word, but yeah, let's talk about some undrafted free agents.
I know you've got a pick, Darren, that might upset John because John's got he's got his favourites. But Darren, I'll throw to you first. We're throwing to John first a lot here. So, who is your pick of the UDFA class?
So I think the most interesting UDFA is our newly acquired Australian punter, Oscar Chapman. What a great name, Oscar. Love it. So the truth is he's a UDFA, so it's not necessarily that he's the greatest punter in the world, but I think this is a genuine punter competition in camp. I think a lot of times you sometimes bring in a second punter just to take the weight off the incumbent punter to save their legs, and then as soon as they're done with their job during camp, they get cut. And but I think Ryan Wright hasn't really been setting the world alight. He's been okay, but he's not. He's meh. He's not. And looking at some of the stats, he's certainly coming out of college stats from Ryan Wright to Oscar. They're not a million miles away in things like this. Their hang time and so forth. So yeah. Obviously, he's an Australian kicker, so I think he tends to try and do that run to the side and kick it from like they do in Australian rules, which is he needs to get out of his game because that's probably it. But yeah, and I'm not necessarily saying that I think that he will beat Ryan Wright out, but I do think it's more of a competition than maybe people might think, is my opinion. But yeah, certainly be interested to see how that goes through camp.
Only problem I have with him is he tends to take a little too long to get his kick away. He tends to take about 2 seconds longer than the average kicker to actually get the kick away. He sets himself up a bit too much, and that's a big difference in the NFL. Spend an extra 2 seconds trying to get your kick away with your ball in the hand, someone's going to get to you. That's a massive, massive difference.
Yeah, he's got some things to clean up, definitely. But I think he does look like he's coachable, and he's played at college level, so he's not coming in completely green. I think the other thing that does give him an advantage is obviously he is an international pathway player, so he would give us an extra position to fill on the 53-man roster. But yeah, be interested to like I say, I don't necessarily think he's going to, but I don't think Ryan Wright is a shoo-in. I don't think he's done enough to, and he doesn't have enough. It's not like I think he's got like $400,000 guaranteed, so that's nothing to. So he's cuttable. So yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, could have 2 punters on our roster. If he's international, he doesn't cost us a place, does he?
No.
No, I'm not sure if that's either on the actual final roster or the practice squad. But
no, it goes up to 50. It goes up to 54 for an international, 53 and 54 for an international.
That's what I mean. So if you went with him rather than Ryan Wright, you've got a 54-man roster rather than a 53-man roster to play with. An extra wide receiver or an extra running back in your room, or an extra offensive lineman potentially. So
there's the perks there, but I think we also do need to talk about Ryan Wright in a sense of, he's not been the same guy since his rookie season where he was outstanding. He did improve slightly last season, but I don't know. I'm not sold on Ryan Wright being the answer. And if Oscar's not the answer either, then do the Vikings have to look elsewhere? It's, I think, half of his punts, or less than, actually fewer than half of his punts last season, pinned the opposition, inside their 20-yard line. His rookie season, I think he only had 1 touchback. He had 5 last season. Now, as we discussed in our punts revisited, not all his fault. There were some where shoddy special teams play let him down. But if you're failing to pin the opposition inside the 20 on on over half your kicks, then you're definitely a candidate to be replaced in the off-season.
But still,
he struggles with hang time as well, doesn't he?
But still, only 5 touchbacks over the season. That's an impressive stat for a punter.
Yeah, except for half his kicks didn't make it far enough to go for touchbacks. I think that was the problem.
If we've got a better option, we've got a better option. I'm quite happy to move on. But
yeah, I think he's replaceable. That's the point.
Yeah.
Is that he does a job. He's not awful. It's not like I'm screaming from the rafters to get him off the team. But other than the fact that John singing right just really annoys me. But other than that, he's replaceable. So if someone comes in, I'm not going to lose any sleep if he's off the roster either. That's the key thing.
It's a weird luxury position to be in, though, considering this time last season we were debating who's going to be starting at quarterback and panicking over the guard position. It's a weird fact, a year later we're debating who should be the punter and if that punter's even on the roster at the moment. It's a weird luxury to be in, but John, I mean, you've got a pick of the UDFAs, and I say luxuries. It's sort of a luxury position that you're going for here.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Chad Chambliss. I think that's me pronouncing his name right. Outside linebacker from Georgia. He was joint top sack leader with Georgia. So, I mean, what more do you actually have to say about the guy that he was joint sack leader on Georgia this year? The fact that he's made it to UDFA is a miracle, to be honest. I mean, he had 6.5 sacks this year. He's got an interception to his name, a recovered fumble. I mean, 50 starts over his college career. So, yeah, I think he can definitely light a fire under some people's backsides.
Yeah, he looks good. Like you say, he's joint sack leader with Jalen Walker, which is obviously a big name player. So no slouch. He does have some weaknesses, I think, given that, and he dropped out. If he didn't, he wouldn't be a UDFA. Let's be honest. So, but in terms of the UDFA space, he's definitely interesting. I think having looked at some of the scouting reports on him, he does have some issues in disengaging off of blocks sometimes. He doesn't have doesn't it doesn't fit the archetypal. I think he's got shorter arms, wingspan, arm span and stuff. So that doesn't help him. But yeah, he's definitely got some pedigree that he's shown on the field. But the other thing, as you say, Reece, in terms of luxury, is that he's coming into a very stacked room on the Vikings for outside linebackers, or any type of linebacker for that matter. So yeah, competing with those players is going to be a tall order to make the 53-man roster. But definitely a candidate for the practice squad, I think. But yeah, don't see him as a 53-manner at the moment unless he completely balls out in camp. Oh, you're on mute, Reece.
Ooh, well, that was going to happen one of these days, wasn't it? So, yeah, it's not one of those positions that you're not guaranteed to step up and make a splash later in the season. Though, if you do make the practice squad, you look at, I think it was Bo Richter last season. We were all raving about him in preseason, saying how good he looked. Of course, he's playing against third and fourth string offensive linemen, but he came in later in the season and recorded a sack or two. So it's nice to have that position. It's nice to have that potential, but it also just shows, with mentioning Bo Richter there, that there's not just the competition of the guys who were on the roster last season. There's also the guys who were on the fringes last season who are still about. So it's a stacked room.
Yeah, because you got Gabe Murphy as well, which obviously was on IR last year, but came in with a huge reputation last year. So he's going to be chomping at the bit to prove his worth as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting in that whole that room to see how it all plays out. But yeah, definitely an interesting player.
Move it on to my pick of the UDFAs then.
Go on then.
Regular listeners will know that when it comes to college football, my loyalties continue to lie in Minnesota. So for me, there was excitement when Max Brosma made the UDFA list for the Vikings. Without a doubt, he's the best quarterback in the last few seasons that the Gophers have had. We're not. The Gophers aren't notoriously a team that will throw a lot or make a lot of attempts at the end zone through the air. They're traditionally a running team. It's no shame to be like that in college football. But Max Brosma, I think the best way to compare him to someone who's been on the Vikings previously that gives him a chance of scraping a roster spot is Darren Hall, because no one really gave Darren Hall too much of a chance of making the roster. He was a bit of a surprise when he did. When you compare his senior year to Darren Hall's senior year, both played 12 games, both averaged around about 66-67% completion percentage. There were differences in the yards and of course the number of passing touchdowns. Darren Hall in his senior year had a pretty good season at BYU, but given that Brosman, he had a similar and a comparable season, I feel it does give him a chance to make the roster or even be on the practice squad as that emergency QB.
So what's that I'm hearing? What I'm hearing is he doesn't like JJ McCarthy and he thinks Brosman should be the starting QB. Is that what you're hearing, Darren?
I think you'll just heard was he might make the practice squad. That's what I said.
Yeah. So it depends on how many QBs we carry in the 53-man roster. I think last couple of seasons we've gone with 3, but typically it's 2 has been the recent history has been the standard. But he's a gopher, so he's for those of us that follow Minnesota sports generally, it's always exciting to see someone. He's 1 year at Gophers. I think he spent 4 years at New Hampshire prior to that. So he's been in college a bit longer. He's a bit older than most coming out. doesn't have a huge arm. Doesn't really have a medium arm, to be honest. He's good. He's good at the slants, and he's quite accurate, but he's certainly not pushing it downfield at all. Yeah, I like the idea of the romance of a gopher coming in and making it, but practice squad is probably the best he can hope for. I think he's still got to beat out Rippin and Howell, which I don't see it at this stage based on scouting reports and what we know we've got in the room. But again, in terms of interesting ones to watch, because they've got something about them. This is I agree that this is one that I will be keeping an eye on to look for.
Yeah, it'll be something interesting to sit there and watch. He might get a quarter in pre-season, depending on how he shows up in training camp. We'll see. Be nice to see.
I don't want to see JJ McCarthy on the field this preseason, so he might get more than a quarter. I hope he gets more than a quarter, just because I'm nervous. Okay, I am just nervous. I know McCarthy's put the weight on. He's back at fighting weight. No preseason risks. No, we learned the hard way. We learned the hard way last season. Let's never go down the Zimmer route again of playing your starters and tearing their meniscuses, which is shocking how many times that's happened to Vikings players who are starters in preseason. When you think about in recent memory, not just JJ McCarthy, but Irv Smith Jr. has cost Darren and Rich substantial amounts of investment because of Mike Zimmer's
absolutely
insistency on playing starters.
Cost me a fortune. But yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, I don't want to be seeing first teamers out in preseason. You get better reps out of cross team practices, I think, than you do from actual preseason games. So just stay on the practice squad, on the practice field, not practice squad, and go from there. Did we want to quickly run through although we want to go into detail, just for our listeners to give a rundown? I've got the list here, if that would help to go through them.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly makes sense to run through them. I think it's definitely, especially I'd say in the offensive line stakes side of things, there are some definitely interesting.
I don't have them in that order.
Oh,
but yeah,
I'm sure you have
let me go
positions.
through them then. So I have the positions, absolutely. I just don't have them in the order of the positions. So I'm just going to go down through my list. So
Go for it.
Tyler Batty, another outside linebacker from BYU. So that's we've then got Silas Bolden, who is listed as a wide receiver, but also a return specialist as well. So he's a potential one to make it with his special teams. So he came. He played 4 seasons at Oregon State and then 1 at Texas. Then we've got talked about Max. So then we had Logan Brown, the offensive line, who was a 5-star recruit and played tackle at Wisconsin and Kansas. Chaz Chembley we've talked about. Oscar we've talked about. Then we've got Zeke Corral, offensive lineman, who played at Notre Dame and then NC State and played as a center, I think. So that's an interesting one there. Dante Fleming, another wide receiver. So played at Louisiana and Tulane. Then we got Keenan Garber, a cornerback. God blimey, he played 6 seasons at Kansas State. So that's a stint, isn't it? Joe Hubber, offensive line, was a walk-on at
Huber,
Cincinnati. Yeah, that was Huber.
Really interesting fact. He was borderline my pick on over 1,400. Over 1,400 pass blocking snaps. He only gave up 5 sacks in his college career, which I thought was actually quite outstanding. And given that there really weren't many linemen taken, especially in the first few rounds, I think the first few rounds, for the first time in as long as I can remember, fewer than 20 offensive linemen were selected. So
yeah, and it looks like he could be quite a good swing tackle. In 2013, he played 13 games, 12 of which were at right guard and 1 at left guard. And then in 2024, he played all 12 games, but primarily at left guard. So he's played both sides of the guard position. So yeah, could be an interesting one to watch. So then moving on, we had Austin Keys, a linebacker, played at Ole Miss and then Auburn. Then we had Robert Lewis, a wide receiver from Georgia State initially before finishing his college career at Auburn as well. But I think we had a few from Auburn. Dorian Masai? Dorian Masai, I'm going with that, Mausi, another linebacker from Auburn, but originally started at Duke. And then we had Bison Nesbitt. Nesbitt's a great name. Tight end, which obviously with Bartholomew joins a tight end room with now some absolutely cracking names, at least. So he was a tight end out of North Carolina. And then we've got Michelle Powell, a safety, whose nickname is Mish, apparently. So he spent 4 years at Washington, primarily as a cornerback, but he then transferred to Miami to play safety. So he's got some, just DB experience. Then we got Miles Price, who is a wide receiver and also a returner at Texas Tech, and then transferred to Indiana. And then we've got Trey Stewart, a running back. So he played at Limestone, which I heard is a very sporty college, but is now closing down. It's no longer going to exist. So, I think he's then most recently played for Jacksonville State, and then must be coming to it. We got Zamir Vaughn, a cornerback from Utah, and Alex Williams, defensive line. So he originally played at Ohio State and then went to Vanderbilt and then finally to Middle Tennessee State. So he's moved around a bit. And then Ben Yorosek, tight end, which I think was also one of my, if I hadn't gone with the punter, I think this is one that I might have gone with. He was a standout at Stanford, then transferred to Georgia. I think he does have a chance of getting into that tight end room and going forward. But and that was it. That's the list. Don't think I missed anyone.
I think you got them all there, mate. Which, I mean, it's not really too much left to talk about this week. I mean, it's the beauty of the off season that we've our biggest talking point seems to be the punter, and that's because we've picked out an Australian punter called Oscar Chapman, who's got a fantastic moustache. It's a good time to be an Australian sportsman if you're called Oscar, although you might need to work on your griddy if that's the case.
Nice segue.
Well played.
Well played. So, yes, for those who didn't see, Oscar Piastri, in other sporting news, he won the Miami Grand Prix, met Justin Jefferson earlier in the week, learned how to griddy, probably needed a longer lesson if we're going to be very granular in breaking it down. It was a very short griddy. It made John and our griddies look good, which is going some.
Which I may show next if I can get hold of the tapes.
Which, Darren, who's been editing these video editions of the podcast, is very keen to try and track down that footage. John and I are hoping it is forever lost in the depths of the internet.
Yeah, it's not though, is it? Let's be honest. I'm going to track it down.
You will find it. I am terrified. In other sporting news, of course, well done to the Timberwolves for seeing off the Lakers in 5 games, was it not? It only took them 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Lakers
done in 5.
Lakers in 5. Everyone was saying, wasn't it? Lakers in 5. Lakers in
Yeah,
5.
then it was Lakers in 5. Then it was Lakers in 7.
Yeah.
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 So yes.
We've got this.
So we
So-
now play all the Wolves. Well, I say we, but yeah, this is obviously a Vikings podcast, but being a Wolves fan as well. Yes. So
Nuggets.
interestingly, we get home advantage because the Warriors
They were ranked 7th.
managed to upset Houston.
Houston, yeah.
So
yeah.
so yeah. So
it's a fun
in
team to
5
play.
again.
It's a fun team to watch, the Timberwolves. Except for the one time when we went on our 0-4 misery tour and we saw them lose to the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really anything else. John, have you got any other news? I mean, there could be some news. I can ask, I guess, Darren, how do you feel about the Vikings not playing in Dublin? And John, how do you feel about the Vikings playing in Dublin? Because we have no idea what's going on, but it may or may not be announced by the time this podcast comes out or we are next on the airwaves. Darren?
I'm devastated. But obviously it means that, other options may be open to us. So it's silver linings. So we'll see. But yeah, it was we had our fingers crossed, but unfortunately, clearly, it's gone to that other insert team here that gets to play the Pittsburgh Steelers in Dublin.
And John?
Yeah, I'm very happy that the Vikings are playing in London. Obviously, this isn't news to us. We've been knowing about it for a while. Dublin even, sorry. Like,
I apologise on behalf of John for all our Irish listeners and watchers.
Yeah, we are. I'm so used to the Vikings playing in London.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Vikings playing in Dublin. It's going to be a good game. It should be a good game, but obviously, it was going to be against someone else, but because a certain quarterback can't decide where he wants to play next year, the other team didn't want to sign up for it.
Yeah, there's a risk that it might be a primetime show that the NFL was to show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might have got in the way. In all seriousness, John, you were at 20% last week. Are you still at 20% this week about the Vikings playing in Dublin, or are you feeling more confident now?
I've moved up to about 40% now. 40%. I think we're playing in Dublin. And that's me lowballing it. I'm not going to lie. It's very
a
much
low ball 40% from the podcast's resident pessimistic Percy. That's as good as 100% for me, Darren. Would you say?
For me, although it's mathematically impossible, it sounds like 110%.
I'll tell you what. I'll make this agreement with you now. If the Vikings play in Dublin, I will cycle from Wembley Stadium, where we played the Steelers last, to Croke Park in Dublin for charity.
Sounds phenomenal. I am
Make sure you pump those tyres up really, really well to get the inflation across the Irish Sea.
We're going to swap
pedal really, really fast.
He'll get to the Irish Sea and we'll just strap his bike to the side of a Swan Pedalo.
Swan Pedalo, and I'll just go over on the Swan Pedalo, yeah.
You heard it here first. There's potentially another big charity drive coming from the UK United Vikings fan club. This time, John will have some saddle sores, I'm sure, by the end of it. So, some get him a inflatable cushion for his seat at Croke Park.
Indeed, I look forward to it.
With that image all in our heads, I guess it's time we wrap this up. So what I'll just say is thank you very much for watching / listening, or both, if you didn't have us on mute when you were watching on YouTube. Of course, we are on YouTube. UK and Ireland Minnesota Vikings fan club, UK Vikes fans as well, or sorry, UK Vikings fans. If you want to search for the @ to find us that way. It is the same, of course, on X and on Instagram at UK Vikings Fans. You can drop us a message direct on there. Get in touch with us by email, ukvikespod@gmail.com. Facebook, UK and Ireland, Minnesota Vikings Fan Club. Blue Sky, UK and IRE Vikes Fans. Discord, there's always a link going on. But we'd like to, hear what you want to say, what you want to hear on the show. It's a long off season, it always is, and without, quarterback drama to talk about, we, would appreciate any feedback, suggestions, or topics you want to hear us talk about. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about a punting battle for the next 2 months. So, with that in mind, I guess all that's left to say is goodbye, gentlemen. So, yeah, thank you very much for listening, everyone. Gentlemen.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
Cheers. Ta-ra, I guess.
Ta-ra, I guess.
Ta-ra, I guess. I'm not Northern. It doesn't sound right in my voice. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Cheerio.
Cheerio. Cheerio, old chaps.